Hello again and welcome to I've Got a Beatles podcast with Dave and Chris. And we are back after our summer break. I've been traveling abroad in various countries in Europe, and Chris has been working and doing some traveling as well.
Yeah,
And
hardly anything happened while you were
yeah,
away here in the U.S. Political talk wise.
that was the craziest thing. I'm at the opera, and all of a sudden I turn on my phone at intermission, and it says former President Trump assassination attempt. It's like, oh my God, wow. All right. And then next
Yeah,
day, oh, then there's Biden's gone. And then it's like, yeah.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
good to be back and focusing on Beatles stuff for a while. So as we mentioned in our previous episode, we were going to wait a while, not only because we were gone, but also because that's how we do things. It's, a lot of our peers and colleagues had this album or did reviews of the Mind Games set with very little time. So that, or that they, like in 3 days, they were suddenly talking about six CDs and beyond. And that's, I think, very hard for us to do because we want to sit with this for a while. And there's just so much material. So,
yeah. I still feel like I haven't really got a grasp on the whole set because
yeah,
it's humongous. 6 discs. Plus, we're not even going to get into all of the crazy oh, you go to this CD and put it in, and you go back to and you find the secret track or any of that.
no,
you know, or any of the bonus stuff. I think a lot of that discussion will save some meat on the bone, meat city on the bone
yeah,
for the gifts episode because neither of us have purchased the set because it's kind of an expensive set. Two, maybe it's not our favorite albums.
yeah,
And three, it's just listening to the streaming is overwhelming enough to try to piece together how we feel about this set, how we feel about these songs, because what we're going to do that they don't do, they unwrap on. Nothing against any of the YouTube guys. Many of them I respect and like, but how many different times can you see people shine a black light on on a thing and not talk at all about really the substance of the music inside of the set? That's
right.
where we come in. We dig deep into the substance, and we're going to actually do a track by track, and which we've never talked about this album full on. We've talked about some of the songs here and there, but what you tune into this, our listeners are great, and they turn into this particular episode because they want to hear about the music and think about the music and our takes on it, and have their own takes on it, and send me texts. Oh, what are you talking about? You're crazy.
You must hate
They'll,
John
they'll,
Lennon's music. Yeah,
yeah, they'll definitely send me a few of those.
yeah, we're going to hear from people, I think, on this one a little bit. But any case, so here's what we're going to do. So we'll start with as Chris just mentioned, we've never actually done a track by track of Mind Games, so we're going to do that first of the
Yeah.
album proper, and then we've got comments from John from the Playboy interviews, which were done about 7 years after the album came out. And then later in the show, in our Please Mr. Postman segment, we've got some listener responses to this set
Mhm.
and opinions that we can react to. And so after we go through the album proper, we'll give you kind of a overview and a few maybe highlights if we have any of the other five CDs that are
Yeah.
included in this set. In some ways, this set is similar to the Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, but in other ways, it's quite different because we have a totally different type, a name of one CD is different that we didn't have on the earlier sets,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of
Interesting.
different. Yeah, it's interesting in a different way. So
Yeah.
that's the plan. So let's dig in here. So Mind Games was originally recorded in late July and August of 1973. Interestingly, it was Yoko who kind of got the ball rolling with her album Feeling the Space, which
Mhm.
was recorded before this, and it has roughly the same musicians. but John recorded it in 2 weeks, very quick,
Yeah.
and very different group of people. There's only one kind of stalwart here who I'll make some comments about, the drummer.
Hmm.
But we'll dig into the personnel in a second. And so
Some
the album,
interesting things to say about the
yeah,
personnel, like
definitely, definitely.
one guy who's appeared on some other famous Beatles solo albums. So,
Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep. So it was released in October 29th in the US, came out first in the US, interestingly, and
Hmm.
then released in the UK the 16th of November of 73. Went to number 13 in the UK and number 9 in the US. So it did pretty well.
Yeah.
And song Mind Games was the hit single, obviously, and the one song everybody knows. And that also did pretty well.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We did our hypothetical Beatles reunion of 73 album. And
Hmm.
that when we talked about that, there were so many great albums from that year. Band on the Run, Ringo, Red Rose Speedway was released, Living in the Material World, and then this. So,
Yeah.
that's something to think about. Where does this even fit in that year? But did fairly well in the charts. And it was after John's political, some might say, debacle of sometime in New York City the previous year.
Yeah.
So those are some of the demographics of Mind Games.
Yeah. This album, just as a whole, like historically, it's usually ranked kind of around fifth
Yeah,
of the
middle.
John album. Some people are like, oh, it's underrated because it's ranked fifth. But what are you going to put it above? Which of the
Imagine. Yeah.
four are you going to put it above? I,
Yeah.
I I struggle to find that. The other thing is, I think this album, produced by John Lennon, not produced by Phil Spector, okay, has been considered one that could really use some help with a remix. There's been remasters. I listened a little bit to the 2010 remaster versions of these tracks and compared them to this remix. And to me, I feel like this remix is fantastic as far as improving each and every song's balance, the bringing the correct things out to the front and fading some annoying things maybe a little bit more to the back. So as just to put it straight out there, I think the remix was a great idea. I think all these albums should be remixed for sure. Particularly this one in Walls and Bridges. I'm interested to hear what Walls and Bridges will sound like remixed because I already like that album
Yeah.
a little bit better than this one. So yeah, so thumbs up onto the remix. Just generally, I will have more specific things to say, I'm sure, about the remix, but the idea of doing the remix, thumbs way up. We've had a lot of examples of remixing an already classic album
Right.
that's
Right.
considered such one of the best, Plastic Ono Band,
All things must pass.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So some of the reactions to those I think sometimes are because I like it the old way. Well, this I don't like it the old way on a lot of these tracks, and I'm almost like I'm gonna throw out the old one and listen to this one a lot more often, I
Oh,
believe.
but you don't want to throw out your nice vinyl copy of your original here that I'm holding up.
Yeah,
Well,
I can already hear that one commenter lady. You're painting over the Rembrandt. And I'm like,
yeah, that's right. That's
this
right.
isn't the Rembrandt. This is
No, it's yeah, second tier Rembrandt.
yeah.
Well, and so an interesting point and something that I've not heard. So this album was actually remixed once before, back in
Mhm.
2002. I've not
Hmm.
heard that version. It was released, I think Yoko was involved in it, and it was released only on CD, I believe. And it's been kind of hard to find, but if you watch or listen to podcasters or read about this album, people are really saying, "Oh, you got to hear the 2002 version. That's really the one. That was the one that was remixed, and it sounds so great." So I unfortunately I haven't heard it, and I haven't really tried to find it, but So it has been done before, but
Sometimes you're gonna like go on eBay and pay like 50, 60
well,
bucks
that's right.
just to get a
Yeah.
remix of a different version of
Yeah.
something. You know,
And
you gotta spend your money where you can.
well, exactly, especially if it's something you really like or you don't really care that much about. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would say that the original album did have kind of a muddy-ish sound. And when I
Yes.
listened to my record here from, I think it's an original, it's an Apple, it does kind of sound that way. However, as I will say later, I think there's cases like you mentioned in some of those other albums where when you bring out things, it sounds better. But in this album, I find there are a few things that I like when you have specterized, like the songs are kind of weak without them. And to me, when it's pulled back too much, might expose some flaws. So
Well,
we'll
well,
see.
that's a good point because I think personally I think this album's filled with pretty good songs, sort of B plus songs,
Yeah.
solid overall. A few skippers, no absolute trash. Well, a
Well,
few seconds of absolute trash, but also though nothing to the level of watching the wheels and like
yeah. Top
I don't know,
tier.
top tier. There might be one or two that have grown in my estimation quite a bit in my listening to it, which we'll get to
Yeah.
very shortly. But yeah, that's a good point though, that if the song's not fantastic song, you could do all the remixing you want, you could strip it down, you could put more things on it if you want, but the song's still going to be kind of an okay song rather than a Imagine or a
Right.
God or something. Like you could play, you could do 100 different versions of God and I'll listen to all of them because they're
Yes.
fantastic. Whereas Intuition, we strip down Intuition to barely anything and it's still barely anything.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And
yep.
also, and in this case too, I don't know of maybe some of the Giles versions have really, well, I don't know of anything that's been cut out completely, but this remix actually does cut some stuff out. The An instrument particularly is cut out in a couple times, like literally gone, and that's the saxophone.
Mhm.
Michael Brecker, you probably were a big Brecker Brothers fan in the day, or Michael Brecker, but he solos on the end of One Day at a Time, I believe, and it's gone. And that's a pretty radical decision. And I saw an interview with somebody and they said, oh, well, Sean thinks he doesn't like the saxophone, so he just wanted to get rid of it. And if that's the case, I don't think
Yeah.
that's a really great reason to do it. But
Yeah.
it's his choice. And like we
Yeah.
always say, you don't have to listen to the remixes. There's
Yeah.
other
There's
versions
still
out
that.
there.
Well, I
Yeah,
was, and
like you
even
said.
streaming, I was
Yeah,
just clicking over and listening to the other version. And in most cases, I do believe it is improved this
yeah,
remix, but there are some choices which are just choices.
right.
The other thing is, it's a very, very dense album, a lot going on with each track,
Busy.
very busy, too busy in some instances. So pulling some things out or
Mm,
quieting some things down, I'm sure they'll pop up here as we're talking about the tracks.
yeah.
But you know, and certainly, I thought it was a very, very interesting idea to do these mixes, these elements mixes, where
Hmm.
you get the vocals, but you get just one or two of the instruments, and
Yeah.
and, and you strip them down. It's sort of like the stripped down. It's sort of like the underdubbed for some,
Underdubbed. Yeah.
in that you're just getting part of the thing, and you can actually hear it a little bit better
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, oh wow, oh, like in one or two cases, it's like, oh, I didn't even realize how complicated those vocals were, or a thing, certain things like that. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's
Well, let's
let's
dig in. This is a
yeah,
perfect
let's do
segue.
it, do
So
it, do it, do
do it, do it now.
it.
Yes. So our musicians on this album, as I mentioned, are a little different. So it's not Elephant's Memory. It's not Klaus and Ringo
Yeah.
and some of the old gang. Instead, we this is a very New York album. Now, Lennon and Ono were living in New York at this point, and all the musicians are. I don't know if
Yeah.
Keltner was a New Yorker, but
I am sort of surprised though that John didn't call these guys like the Newtopian
yeah.
national, something or another.
Instead, he called them the Plastic UFOno Band. You like that? So
Yeah.
we've got so John, of course, we've got David Spinoza, which you had made a reference earlier to him playing on. Well, I
Yeah,
assume it was him.
he
Yeah,
played on Ram,
yeah.
of course, and your favorite album. I know you went out and bought this the $40 version that came out of Ringo the Fourth.
Oh,
That's
nice.
right. That's right. Kills it on
Absolutely
Ringo the Fourth.
kills it. So we've got David Spinoza on guitar, Gordon Edwards on bass, who certainly makes an impression. This is probably the most bass heavy and funky bass that John Lennon album has. You've got Jim Keltner, as we mentioned, Michael Brecker on sax, pedal steel, Sneaky Pete.
That's right, Sneaky Pete.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got Kenny Asher on.
What's his last name? Kleinow.
Oh,
Sneaky Pete Kleinow.
yes, Sneaky Pete Kleinow. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. We've got Kenny Asher on piano, organ, and mellotron. And then singers, background singers, and all the extraneous
Yeah,
stuff.
the background singers. I have a little note here on them. I'll just bring it up when we get to
Okay,
whatever
when we hear
track
them.
that is.
Yeah.
But I did want to say about Sneaky Pete. You know what album Sneaky Pete played on? He also a studio musician.
Yeah.
Studio musicians, they end up playing on all these famous albums. Well, your second most favorite album,
Bad
Ringo's
Boy.
Rhoda Gover.
Oh, nice.
Got
Nice.
Sneaky Pete all over it. So,
Oh, excellent. Excellent. So I'm looking at my original album here. You have the Declaration of Newtopia
yep.
included. Yeah. And then the John and Yoko writing from the Newtopian Embassy.
I see that you got the big $1,300 box set. So you have
Right.
your Ethiopian flag and your
Yep.
dice and all
My certificate and all
Yeah.
that stuff. No, not quite. But so an interesting group of musicians. What's your general take overall on the musicianship of the album compared to maybe Plastic Ono or Imagine?
pretty solid. I mean, they're all pretty solid musicians. I think that's why the remix to me has improved it so much is because the musicians are there and playing great stuff, and then we had this muddy kind of like vocals back too far, acoustic guitars way too far ahead, kind of in general, and kind of like tinny sounding original mix compared to this thing that's much warmer, much we get that bass a little heavier. We get the drums, especially the two tracks where there are two drummers playing at the same time.
I should have mentioned Rick Murata on drums with Jim Keltner on two songs, like you said.
A couple of the fast ones, Meat City and another one.
Yeah, Bring on the Lucy.
Yeah, so a lot of great stuff there. It's just at times I feel like this is too much.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, before we get going here, are there too many parenthetical titles on this album too? There's 3.
Not for me, my friend. Plus, I like because now we get Bring on the Lucy, Free to People, and then Elements Mix. I'm like,
yes.
Double parenthetical?
Double parenthetical. Sign him up. Sign Chris up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dig in here. So side 1 begins with the title track, and I'll start out by reading what John had to say from the Playboy interview. So he says, Mind Games was originally called Make Love Not War, but that was such a cliche you couldn't say it anymore. So I wrote it obscurely. It's all the same story. How many times could you say the same thing over and over? We have to face the reality that being nasty human beings who are born evil and everything's going to be lousy and rotten. So boo hoo hoo. We had fun in the 60s, they said, but the others took it away from us and spoiled it all. And I was trying to say, no, just keep on doing it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Not very helpful, particularly,
No.
but yeah.
Well, well, this song to me has always been in that mold of Imagine and God and message wise, but less effective. And
Yeah.
it's hard to make like just listen to without any context and know what to make of like the lyric, like some kind of druid dude lifting the veil. It's sort
Hmm.
of too very opaque. When you dig in and look at the history, apparently John and Yoko really liked the book Mind Games,
Yeah.
The Guide to Inner Space by Robert Masters and Gene Houston. It was released in 1972,
Perfect.
and they liked it. Both had multiple copies, I guess. And apparently, this book was a classic mind training exercise that became the Bible of conscious exploration for a generation. It extends the usefulness of the games into corporate, educational, therapeutic, and community settings. So,
Mm.
sort of like positive spin on consciousness
Yeah.
through these games. So that did give me a little bit of a better understanding of the lyrics, being direct pulls from that book. But even with that better understanding of the lyrics, I do think overall a little bit lesser of a song than, I mean, it's the most, when I said, oh, we're reviewing Mind Games, I, somebody asked me what's on
Yeah.
that I would know. And
Yeah.
I said, Mind Games?
Right. That would be
Because
the
that's
one.
maybe the one track that people know because it was the big single and played a lot. But I do overall, why this historically has been a little bit lesser of a song for me is I think the repetitive guitar lick and sound of the wang, wang, wang,
Yes.
dwang, dwang,
I'm glad you
dwang,
said that. Yeah.
and the key, it's like, and I'm like, what is this doing? Does it match the message of the song? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the ultimate mix, it definitely reduces that sort of like shrillness of that on the original mix a little bit. It's a more bounce sound, heavier bass, so it it's taken a tick up for me because of the understanding the context of how they wrote the song,
Mm.
what their thinking was, and also just balancing out that sort of shrillness of that lick.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm glad you mentioned about that shrillness because that's something that does really stand out. That, and I guess that's Sneaky Pete. The bam, bow, bow,
Yeah,
it gets a little monotonous to
yeah,
listen to. And this is a song I've seen some books and things have called it kind of a sacred song because it's like such a powerful song. But I think it has been kind of muddy and hard to make sense in it, and it's a little plotting in the original version. So it does help to bring out some of the different elements. And something that you'll hear, especially on some of the other versions, is the love is the answer. It's a very reggae-ish feel. Boom, chicka,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So that comes out a lot more, which I like. And it shows a little diversity in the sound.
There's also a version of this on the not to jump ahead,
Yeah,
but on the Elements mix, which is just organ only.
right.
And it's funny because it's Sunday that we're recording this, and this was the first thing that popped up when I hit play. Apparently, I was like there on my playlist or something, and it seemed like a church.
Yeah, it is like church.
So it's sort of a mixture. It's not the only time in this album there's a mixture of styles in the
Yeah,
same song. Out the Blue comes to mind, but yeah. So there's a lot going on with Mind Games, and there is. It's not. I don't hate the song, so
no.
I'm already getting probably texts at this point of listener of like, "What are you crazy?" But it just doesn't. It's not as effective and clear to me of a
Yeah.
message as many of the other message type, we got to, like imagine. Like,
Right.
I mean, how many times do you hear mind games on the like American Idol or something like that?
Yeah, you wouldn't. No.
So
Well, maybe the hidden messages will really come out because he hits you over the head with tight as number two. And so John says about this one, tight as, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's A with a dollar sign.
yeah.
Just a throwaway track. I felt like doing that kind of song. It's a Tex-Mex sound, which actually you could play now and it would be au courant, but I don't think many people were doing it then.
Yeah. Well, it's a peppy shuffle.
Yeah.
And this one has grown on me a bit. I always sort of making fun of it in my mind because of the
Yeah.
title, right? And it's like a 50s style, kind of rockabilly kind of
Right.
style. And I'm never a big, huge fan of those, but it's not bad. And the ultimate mix brings out that second guitar part in a pleasant way. There's like two different guitars going on. And there's a nice guitar solo on this too. So lyrically, not a lot going on. Uptight's all right. I think it's kind of a fun little turn of phrase, but otherwise, it's just kind of a silly to me thing.
Did you like learning about Indian rope tricks or dope fiends fixes? Yeah, see that's a little kind
Yeah.
of kind of weak. This is a song that I think benefited in the original from the heavier slapback reverb and delay because
Uh-huh.
without it, it sounds very weak. I think the guitar, I don't know if David Spinoza has a clean sound. I think this could have used some grit, just kind of weak drumming, just kind of a weak track. And so when you put it in that original with the bigger sound, to me, it works better. So I
Hmm.
was a little underwhelmed in the remix.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying about the slap back and like like let's strip it. To me, I'm like, let's strip it down, but then it probably the errors were in the recording of it
Right,
because
exactly.
it should have
Yeah.
been recorded kind of like Sun Records style.
Yeah.
It needed to sound exactly like that kind of feel, and it doesn't in the
Yeah.
original or in the remix.
Right.
So I only prefer the remix because I really like this one guitar. Sometimes I prefer the remix, and then later I'll change my mind because it's like the remix is like, oh, there's a new thing I haven't heard in this, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I like that, But then maybe I'll eventually go back to the original. But it's a
Yeah.
it's not a skipper, but it's not it's not
It's a B. Yeah.
it's a B minus. A
B
lot of B
minus.
minus tracks
A lot
on
of B minus tracks. Okay. So I don't have any. I don't think John talked about the next song in the Playboy interview. I don't see it in unless he was in a different section, but it's Isimu Sen, I think is how we say it.
Yeah, which
And I'm
apparently is
sorry.
yeah, apparently is really incorrect as far as so I'm going to read from this guy Vernon, Florida. This was from a Quora message board, so take that with
Okay.
the grain of salt. But this Vernon, Florida is a master in journalism at Carleton University.
What a
Okay,
name.
so he apparently knows what he's talking about. And he says it's fairly obvious from the full title, Asimasen, I'm sorry, that Lennon meant this to mean I'm sorry in Japanese. It's close, but not very accurate. The standard term for apology in Japan is simasen. There's
Oh,
an older formal term for the same, which would be asimasen, asimo miyasen. Note the extra me in there that's missing from John Lennon's attempt. Well, when speaking rapidly in Japanese, might sound like they're saying simasen or, and then he goes on and on.
okay.
But so
Deep
it's sort
dive.
of like bastardized version of I'm sorry. And it's strange because Yoko
I
is right
know.
there. So you'd think he'd turn and just ask her. But
And she's name checked in the song too. So
yeah.
even more.
And then we also have real sanpaku in the song. That's traditional Japanese face reading. Yang sanpaku white above the iris was believed to be point to a belligerent, even violent temperament. Who does that sound like?
Right,
And a
right.
difficulty controlling inner emotions. What happens if you had Sampaku eyes? People are rumored to have a tragic fate when they're yin
Hmm.
with yin Sampaku, while people with yang Sampaku eyes are said to be more violent. So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really care about any of that while
No.
I'm listening to it, but I like this song a lot. This song probably has grown the most for
Hmm.
me in my listening to it over and over. I think it's a very pretty song. I've heard some people say that it's basically the same song as God,
Hmm.
but I think it's different. I think that's them
Yeah.
conflating that little beat-a-loop sort of
Yeah. The
God
piano
piano
part.
link
Hmm.
lick. The ultimate really brings up the drums and the bass, and this one sounds almost like it would fit in Plastic Ono Band.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and then Sneaky Pete, of course, is on this
A
one. But
lot
I
of
think
guitar playing.
I love the intentionally messy guitar solo at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's David Spinoza on that.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
But I really like the song. The more I listen to this song, the more I like it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one because I probably went the other way with getting very tired of this song. And I think it's because for me the lyrics are very simpy and wimpy, like kind of I don't know, almost embarrassing. When he's the Japanese, the calling in Yoko, the kind of I'm sorry ness of it just kind of
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dragged it down for me. But
He's not a
I
real man to you.
no
How dare he show emotions?
no. I think you're right though. The sound of it fits well on would have fit well on Plastic Ono Band.
Yeah.
And what I can say is I may share some maybe opinions that the songs are kind of fair to middling, but there are a lot of pretty like nice melodically interesting and nice musical moments on here. I just think it maybe doesn't hold together too well. It's like one
Yeah.
time too many through the verse and one
Yeah.
time too many. So to me, this one drags a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but so
Hey, we're
he,
split. Hey, we're
we're
split on
split.
that one.
Yeah, exactly.
A classic agree to disagree on that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely,
love it. Love it.
absolutely.
Um,
So yeah, you're
Dave's a big fan of falsetto, right?
oh, I had a question for you. We've got three falsettos, I think, that I
Yeah.
can think of. Three, I think, I don't know if George's was, but I'm thinking of him on You, or that was just straining, maybe. All right. Well, let's say, let me see. Which falsetto do you like better? Do you like John on One Day at a Time or Paul on So Bad?
I like John on One Day at a Time much better than Paul on So Bad, personally.
Okay. Okay.
And I think John's had a decent falsetto overall.
Well, John says about one day at a time, well, that's just a concept of life, how to live life. It was Yoko's idea for me to sing it all falsetto.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't like the falsetto, we'll talk about later, or we can just mention it, that you can hear
Yeah.
a version on here, actually also on the John Lennon anthology, that he sings it in regular voice, which sounds very
Yeah.
different, actually.
Yeah. I like
They're
that
both
too.
good. Yeah.
It's nice to have that option
Yeah.
if you're not liking the falsetto. Well, yeah, the whole song, a sweet little short song.
Hmm.
So you're definitely not gonna get too sick of this one. And I like the little, like I'm a fish and you're the sea.
It's kind of the yin and yang here, the back and
yeah.
the binary stuff. Yeah.
I'm the apple and you're the tree. Of course, the
Hmm.
apple reference always lifts the eyebrow.
Yeah.
But I think one of the standout things on this is the background vocal help from the background vocal trio. Something different. This is
Yes.
what I wanted to mention before. That's Christine Wiltshire, Jocelyn Brown, and Angel Coakley. And they just, it's interesting that they're just a group that go by something different and hire something different to come in and be your background singers. They're used a few times on this album, and always with this sort of like angelic, kind
Yeah,
of like heavenly, kind of gospel-y kind of vocal kind of thing happening.
with ooh, you got the oohs and ahs and a lot of that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will also say musically for this album, John does try out some other things. So some of it does sound a bit like soft rock or soft jazz, kind of that Paul Simon or Billy Joel or that sort of sound with the jazzy chords and I think there's Rhodes on this one,
Yeah. Yeah.
which you can hear, and the keyboards by Ken Asher. So this one, yeah, it doesn't bother me. It's a like you said, kind of a sweet song and short
Yeah.
enough, not a standout, but not offensive either,
Yeah.
and it's played well.
So in your estimation, we don't have a standout track yet.
No, no, we don't.
So I would say, I'm sorry, I like Latin, I mean, Mind Games, everybody's going to remember Mind Games. So
yeah, yeah, that would probably be my standout just because of its sound and fame, and also one day in parentheses at a time. So
yeah,
there you go.
that's right.
Now,
Uh,
for another parenthetical, we
yeah.
close side. Well, actually, no, we don't close side one because your favorite track closes side one. But before that, we have Bring on the Lucy, which is the title that you never actually hear except kind
Yeah.
of yelled at the end, and then Frida People.
Yeah.
So,
It's really yelled a lot at the end on one of the bonus tracks. I forget which thing, but I was like, oh, there it is, finally.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly. So this is another. I'll start on this one, I guess. It's a another. He starts out with a, "All right, boys, this is it, over the hill," and
yep.
kind of a. When I remember it from the original album, it's another kind of specterized, heavy, reverby, big sounding song. The new version thins it out a little bit, but it's another political, one of the few overtly political songs on this album.
Yeah.
And I think the, well, you hear something very different in the chorus that you don't hear in the original, which is the do it, do it, do it, do it.
Yeah.
In the original, you hear hey, 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 hey. I thought it was hey, 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 but it's do it, do it, do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
do it now. So there's a little difference. And the lyrics, again, for me, are a little cringy in some moments here with the jerking off each other and 666 is your name and
Yeah, that one's not so good, but
yeah.
I
Okay,
yeah, go no, keep going.
okay. No, musically, I've always liked this song, and I think I
Mhm.
like the slide guitar on it. I think it's got a powerful riff. It's one of the few songs that actually rocks on the album,
Yeah,
and so for that, I like it.
they kind of amp up this sort of warbly other guitar sound
Yeah, yeah,
on this, which I think helps. And this one's this one I definitely prefer the remix because he plays the National guitar that he bought. This acoustic, it's an acoustic guitar that's tinny,
yeah,
and that is very loud in the original mix, and it's very very too heavy, too
yeah,
like way too much. So I like they pulled back on that. The other guitar that's got that warbly sound comes a little more forward, balanced perfectly. This one just keeps growing on me as I
yeah.
listen to it. I mean, yes, it's a lecture song towards politicians, which is not unusual for him.
No,
But I think it's more of one of the more successful attempts at it because I know what you're saying about the lyrics, but I think it's a little more lighthearted than some
mm.
of his
It's
than
not give
some
me
of
some
his
truth or
yeah. It's
yeah,
like for instance, the lyric we don't care from where you're from or where you're going. All we or we don't know where you're from or where you're going. all we know is that you came, sort of
Yeah.
a funny thing. Or and then it's a caught with your hands in the till. I thought
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
little line. And then I really like this sort of phrasing here, which is, well, we were all caught with our hands in the air. Don't despair, paranoia is everywhere.
Yes. I like that
We
too.
can shake it with love when we're scared. So let's shout it aloud like a prayer. Stop the killing. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fun to this, and putting two drummers on it too
Oh yeah, helps.
gives it this extra fun energy to it. So I've been walking around going, do it, do it, do it, do it all week. So
Yeah.
so I'm a thumbs up. I think I'm this is one of the two or three songs on this that have gained steam from where I
Mhm.
thought like they were like, it's all right song, to now I feel like a lot better about it.
I think maybe because in the original mix, the lyrics are a bit harder to hear. I think I liked it more because I didn't know exactly what he was saying or I wasn't paying attention. I was more into the
Yeah.
music and the sound and the power of the
Yeah.
song. And now my attention is drawn every time I hear him saying, "Yeah, you're jerking off each other."
Yeah, well, politicians are doing that though. I mean,
We know
you
that.
know,
Yeah, that's for
so
sure.
yeah.
But I don't know. But no, I generally give it thumbs up. So I would say the album, the first
Now
side.
hold
I
on.
know we still haven't had the final song yet. So which I have a great quote from this book on. But
Okay.
I'll say of the songs that have sound, I'd say Mind Games and Free to People probably
Yeah,
the best.
and I think it's a stronger first half. I like I certainly like Tight Ass better than you do. I definitely like I'm Sorry more than you do. I have a hard time
Yeah.
saying foreign
I
words,
see Musen or
even
yeah.
if they're made up foreign words.
Yeah.
And then One Day at a Time's a sweet little thing. So I think that
Yeah.
side one's relatively pretty good, but still not quite an A. You know,
No.
it's like a B
No.
plus maybe.
Now we should say that we're not done with side one yet because you have I'm going to read from the words and music of John Lennon by Ben Urish and Ken Beelan here, talking about the Newtopian International Anthem.
Mhm.
And so it says here, the anthem exists as a concept only, represented here by a few seconds of silence. Presumably, the listener should think about the anthem or the state of Newtopia during those seconds, and those thoughts are then the anthem itself. A few seconds of silence being a relatively common occurrence, the number has the potential to be Lennon's most often performed composition, albeit unintentionally and likely without garnering royalties. Mind games indeed.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a foolish little
Yeah.
silliness. They've played up in this release in particularly in the big box, the Newtopian of it all,
Yeah.
and in all of the online selling of the album and everything. They're trying to have fun with the idea of mind games, the concept of mind games, and the idea and concept of Newtopia, which you can hear very clearly on the
Yeah.
sixth track when they instead of Newtopian National Anthem, we get like actual them talking, the
Right.
declaration of Newtopia straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
So I've always considered it to be one of the most worthless things in the Beatles solo, and it's right up there with It's Johnny's Birthday and things like
Yeah.
that,
The
of
inner
like
groove.
this is nonsense rather than actual music and
Right.
stuff. But it's fine.
Yeah.
It's two
Whatever.
seconds. Who cares?
Well, and I love the fact that you get remastered versions of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Remix. The remix of that is
Remixed.
something else. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I do think it's funny that they have, like, for instance, on the Evolution documentary, it's there and it's 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean,
oh,
they're having fun.
here's how it evolved.
Right.
So they're having a little fun. It's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine. It's all good.
But it is worth. I mean, it's nonsense. It's
Yeah.
nonsense. So
Well, let's flip over the album and we
so,
go to side two, which has 6 songs on it. So we have Intuition is the first one.
I'm going to
And
guess there's no Playboy interview
no,
discussion of
very
intuition.
good. There's not.
Sometimes the Wikipedia article, if you go to Wikipedia Mind Games, for instance, go to
Yeah.
Wikipedia Mind Games discussion of the album, and then there's you know, where they list the tracks, and then most of the time you click on the track and you go through to a bigger article about that specific track. None for Intuition. That tells you everything you need to know, that it's considered a lesser track on the album by pretty much everybody. It is not as successful of a song. I mean, you got a lot of clavinet, you know, you got a decent
Yeah.
little lick in the chorus,
A lot of bass.
a lot of bass. What's the solo played on? Is that clavinet or is that, I
Do,
couldn't
do,
really,
do, 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 do. Yeah, it does. I think it is
yeah,
clavinet. Yeah, some sort of keyboard instrument.
but it's just not up to snuff, I think, particularly lyrics wise, and
No.
and particularly to start out a side of an album, it's a real skipper to me. So
Yeah.
it's not a dud.
Yeah.
Okay, don't get me wrong. There's a difference between a dud and a skipper. A dud is like, ugh, I can't even listen to this. Get rid of this.
Like it's Johnny's birthday.
Yeah, Intuition is fine, but there's nothing you don't. It doesn't stick with you. It doesn't like make you like be, oh, this is one of my favorites.
No.
You know, nobody's saying that. So
No, this is another one of those different styles. So it's kind of a like jazzy or shuffly jazzy kind of song.
yeah,
And this is one I really like the concept of it because I think intuition is something that is worthy of a song. And I think John could have written great lyrics to do that. But a chorus of intuition takes me there, intuition takes me everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm all for following your intuition.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
telling that to my writing partner all the time when he's downing
Yeah.
himself. I'm like, you know, go by your intuition.
Yeah.
You know, listen to your gut. But maybe, maybe I don't know. Maybe he didn't listen to his gut when he made this song because
I know.
it's a mess to me, and there's not much of. There's a lot of dung 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 dang.
Real jangly.
Yeah.
Two bit. Yeah.
I like that lick, but it's
Yeah.
overall it's
Busy.
just kind of busy and
Yeah.
doesn't stick with you. It's real, you know,
Yeah.
not great.
Skipper.
Yeah.
Now the next song, I think you and I would probably agree on this one, that it's a contrast from the previous one. So he only says, now John in typical John fashion says almost nothing about Out the Blue. He says, well, that's just another kind of love song, nothing special. But I would disagree, and I think it starts out. I first I couldn't believe. I was thinking, is that David Spinoza playing the guitar lick? And I thought, no, that actually sounds like John. Like John really practiced. It's so clean and it's tricky and a
Yeah.
great opener to the song. So I like
Yeah.
the guitar. His guitar playing is great. I like it's a love song, but it has a couple of head scratchers, I have to say, in the lyrics. I want to know your thought on like a UFO, you came to me. But I like this one, especially musically. I think it's very strong.
I saw this described as the song about the awe of finding unexpected love. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
A description of it. Simple ballad vocals, but it's probably one of my favorites on the album. I think
Yeah.
the something different, angelic background vocals work very nicely here. Musical styles wise, this is what I was talking about. About you've got that acoustic beginning. It's sort of like in one style, and then we go into a kind of a gospel thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a country twang that comes in. So, and then remix on this one, it
Oh,
really brings up that fun, very busy piano part,
yes.
which I could just listen to that all day long on its own. It just really great. So,
Kind of honky tonky a little bit in a few spaces, like a
yeah,
bluesy piano. It fits really nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I like it. It's a definite thumbs up for me, especially
Yeah.
coming after Intuition. I'm great. Really,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And
So
probably coming right before the next song too, which is another one gets a lot of flack. So he says, so only people, that was a failure as a song. It was a good lick. It was a good lick, but I couldn't ever get the words to make sense. So
we
another phrase from Yoko here. Only people know how to talk to people.
Yeah, what
Okay.
does that even mean?
Deep.
Is that anything? Maybe this was he foresaw the coming in 50 years of AI, and he was trying to warn us about the
Yes.
dangers of like, nope, you have to have people to talk to people.
Yes.
We don't want no big brother scene.
Well, according to the lyrics here, it's Pig Brother
Big
scene.
brother scene.
Yeah, even
No
better.
way. No
Yeah,
way.
pig.
No way.
That's what it says.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. I
It's
know.
crazy. I
Yeah.
just it's I mean it's an okay jaunty song, but it kind of reminds me of like a TV commercial
It,
in the
it
70s or
does.
something that was made for kids,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
sing along. Only people
Oh, yep.
too much with the clavinet. Is it clavinet or clavinet? I've
I
always
think it's clavinet.
clavinet. Okay.
Yeah.
Too much with the clavinet. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I Dave, I do love, as you know, histrionics. Now,
Yeah. Oh, this has.
normally we're talking about Paul histrionics, but this is
Yeah.
a treasure trove towards the end of John. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Let's go.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Keep on, keep it
Good
on.
on. Boogie, baby. Yeah.
All right, all
All
right. He
right.
does give it a little hint to revolution there.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
This is some good
so
John histrionics in this one.
yeah, so it doesn't. So for that reason, it doesn't bother me so much. But it isn't. I wouldn't call it a skipper because I mean it's peppy enough, and
Yeah.
you know. But I think his assessment of his own now I'm gonna argue against his assessment of his own work in the next
Mm,
song,
okay.
but only people I think his assessment of his own work in this case is accurate.
I think so too. Now the next we go to another parenthetical title. I don't know why you need a parenthetical title of the same thing, but it's
Yeah,
I know parentheses I know. And as you alluded to, John was not real fond of this one. He said, just a piece of nothing.
yeah, he's totally wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
He's totally wrong. I love this song. It's probably my favorite song in the album. Every time I listen to it, it keeps getting better. Love the chord changes on this. Really interesting. I love the guitar lick on this.
Yeah.
So this has stuck with me since we did that episode where we put together a track list, and I noticed all of the little possible Beatles references in this. Like I know it's getting better all the
Better all the
time.
time. Yeah.
Exact phrasing, it can't be a mistake. Today I love you more than yesterday.
Yeah.
So some people have thought, oh, is this really about Paul
Mm.
and not about Yoko for a goddamn change? But I don't know because
Yeah.
John's kind of like mentally deranged and obsessed with Yoko. So I'm not sure it's really he's thinking about Paul.
No.
But I like a lot of the lyrics here. I like that I'm only learning to tell the trees from wood. It's sort of a different take on the forest from the trees. It's
Right, right.
not repeating the cliche you've heard, but it's getting the same message
Yeah.
across. So I think that that's good. There's a music critic. This was from, I think I saw it on Wikipedia, a music critic, Johnny Rogan. And he said that the emotional commitment, largely missing from other songs he recorded during this period, is clearly revealed here. So I
Hmm.
think that that's good. And then I love the drums too on this one. So
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah,
to like
this
on I Know, I Know.
I agree with you on this one. I especially like the chord progression, the background vocals. I think there's also some John double tracking or triple tracking almost himself that
Yeah.
sounds great,
Oh yeah.
and harmonizing with himself is excellent. I also I like the fact that the song ends mysteriously. No more crying on a minor chord and kind of
Yeah.
spooky ending.
Yeah.
So it's not predictable.
I don't
And
know why he didn't like this song. I
yeah,
mean, it's
it's
great.
great.
It's
It's
it's a
great. I
great
know.
song.
I
So,
don't get it either.
and
So
then do you like the start of this next track? Where they just go nine.
nine.
What the hell's going on with that?
What the hell? Well, the next song is You Are Here," and the comment was, "I sort of attempted a Latinesque song in a ballad tradition."
Yeah.
Okay.
It,
Yeah.
you get the pedal steel guitar at the beginning of
Yeah.
this. Honestly, my favorite version of this is just the pedal steel guitar version that's on
One of the elements or elemental
Elements. I think
mix.
it's very,
Yeah.
very like calming.
Meditative. Yeah.
Yeah, and it intentionally a smooth, super relaxed feel that's
Yeah.
appropriate for the song. It feels a little bit like he's gone trapo, right?
It does feel
Uh,
like you're tropical or
yeah.
yeah, it sound of beginning sounds like "And I Love Her." It's the same chord that
Mm,
E major six kind of do 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 do
yeah.
do. Yeah, very relaxed.
What do you think of the lyrics? East is east and west is west. The twain shall meet.
Again, the maybe it's just it's I like John being direct, but this one's a little too on the nose. Kind of like I'm sorry, the same one was just too on the nose with it's obvious who it's about. I know I like Oyoko and sure, but this from Liverpool to Tokyo and it's trying to be poetic, I think, of East and West and the twain shall meet, putting how they came together. And so I guess you could look at it as a sweet song and kind of
Yeah.
a nice sentiment, but
Well,
I like the music more.
I think it's a good idea of something called "You Are Here," but the execution of it, lyrically at least, is a
Yeah.
failure. A
Yeah.
failure, if you ask me. It turns it into a skipper.
Yeah.
It's another no click through on the on the Wikipedia article, and it
Yeah.
feels like the most filler thing on the second
Filler.
side. Yeah, so a
Yeah.
little unsuccessful, but I do like that. Okay, we want a song that's slow and sedate,
Yeah.
and they accomplish that for the most part.
Well,
So,
especially in relation to the final track on the album, which is
oh
the
yeah,
opposite of that, Meat City.
yeah.
I know your favorite here. You like chicken, let's see,
Well,
chicken sucking mother trucking Meat City shook
well,
down USA.
well. See, there's rumors going around that maybe you haven't heard this, that he co-wrote this song with an angry Yosemite Sam. Remember how
Really?
Yosemite Sam used to be like, frick a second, rick a
Yeah,
second.
he did do that.
Yeah. So
I think that's it.
chicken
Got it.
sucking, mother
Yeah.
trucking.
And
Well,
we're going to China. We're going to Meat City. We're going up the mountain.
yeah. Well, it's easy to make fun of both Meat City and Beef Jerky on the
Yeah.
next similar tunes, by the way, sort of
Yeah.
just based on their names.
Yeah.
And this one also has a lot of this silliness with chicken picking. But it's a little more fun than
Yeah.
it's silly, but it's fun silliness. Particularly at the end, I like John and he's shouting, "Yeah, we're going to China,"
Yeah.
you know. And I do love the two drummers again on this. I think it's really fun to listen to the drums on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll hear, oh, I can hear them both. I can hear which one's which, kind of. So I like that idea, like using that to bolster some of these faster songs and give it a little punch and energy.
Yeah.
This one also has these weird little interjected sort of like backwards bits
That's the bow
and
bow
odd,
bow bow.
yeah, and odd stuff kind of mixed in there. So I
Yeah.
there's some fun stuff in there musically mixed with a total nonsense of, I mean, what you talk about, vague concepts. Meat City, what
Yeah.
he's going after there. Does that, can you wrap your head around Meat City?
No, maybe he's thinking New York City with all the kind of crazy stuff that happens in New York, and he's calling it New York, but he already wrote a song called New York City. So
Yeah.
uh, I don't
It,
know.
dun,
It-
dun, 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 dun.
yeah.
There's that lick that's sort of in a couple other tracks, like
Yeah.
in previous work. So
This song to me is such a train wreck that I like it. It's kind of got like the lyrics are just all over the place. The song is just ragged and rocking, and the electronic background effects. It's just like it is like a train wreck, but I really like it in a weird way. Yeah, especially the going to China. The metrical changes. So if you try to play along with it, you have to count because there's a riff that is kind of challenging. You hear it more on the broken down, stripped down tracks, but it's a tricky riff,
yeah,
and so it's kind of interesting from a guitar playing perspective. But does it
this
mean anything?
too,
Nah.
this song I think is a precursor to whatever gets you through the night.
Yeah, yeah,
In that sort of like what I've always called the SNL band sound.
totally, totally.
There's a lot going on, and it's like just giving you the energy and like that. Like
Yeah,
maybe it's a little cocaine mixed in there too,
yeah, right, right.
of just sort of like this is gonna be a fun, energetic kind of thing, So,
Yeah,
but yeah, I kind of like this. I mean, it's stupid,
it is.
but particularly if you're reading the lyrics, you feel like an idiot for liking this song,
I know.
this song. But I like it enough that and it's a good closer
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah, it is.
so thoughts on the album before we get to the thoughts on the
Yes.
set and the tracks or the discs and all that. Thoughts on the album overall.
Okay. So
Uh,
I'll read from this book, The Words and Music of John Lennon, and then I'll share my thoughts as well here.
okay.
So, because I find myself kind of agreeing with this. This sums it up pretty well to me. Mind Games is a frustrating album because the more intriguing efforts do not sustain themselves. Good tracks musically or in production either make no attempt at lyrical substance or fall into the vacuous or mundane, and the
Mhm.
more prosaic music numbers have moments of lyrical cleverness or insight. And yet there are a few tracks where it all comes together and works. Lennon was entering a period of personal distress right before the Lost Weekend, but with an increase in both productivity and artistic accomplishment. Mind Games, because of its hit or miss content on the whole, would continue to be viewed as second tier Lennon. And
Yeah.
I think that sums it up pretty well for me.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, I think I'd probably give it like a 6.5. Like
mhm.
it's just almost a 7.
Yeah.
It's almost there. And
It
but that's a very accurate description.
yeah. Thinking of that question, if you had to let's say picking what are the essential tracks? What are the absolute essentials for you? I think we both agree Out the Blue is probably an
Hmm.
essential. So if you wanted to say if someone said what like your friend says what should I know on Mind Games? What are the essential tracks? I think I would put probably the title track on there just because
Yeah.
and Out the
We
Blue.
agree on Out the Blue and we agree on I Know I Know.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
And then I'd say I'm sorry, but
Okay.
you wouldn't.
No.
But we can't say tight as, we can't say,
No.
oh, maybe free to people.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to do it. We can't say intuition. We can't. I mean, there's too many. Only people. You're here.
Yeah.
Even Meat City. As much as we like Meat City, it's not really. So there's too many inessential tracks
Yeah.
dragging the piece as a whole down. And the other thing is, the piece as a whole is sort of a muddled thing. I mean, there's something that's supposed to be there of with which I think maybe with the sound of it, it's sort of like angelic chorus relate to the pedal steel guitar
Hmm.
and how like the whole sound does it come together as a whole, you know, as a whole
Yeah.
piece where you feel like which on Plastic Ono Band it definitely comes together. On Imagine,
Yeah.
obviously it comes together. This it just doesn't feel like it's got that same kind of like continuity throughout. It's
Hmm.
this and then this style and then three styles thrown into one thing and so there's a lot of
I think it's
confusion in it.
confusion's a good word to
So
say.
yeah.
And friend of the show, Wayne, described this album as he said it sounded like a bunch of forgettable B-sides. And I
Hmm.
think you could say that about some of the tracks for sure.
Yeah, You Are Here for sure. And
Yeah. And
Intuition.
intuition, only
Those are the
people,
two
maybe.
real. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All
Well,
right.
now on the set though, there is a few things I like that the Lennon Camp does. One is having each disc. So they have 6 discs here, and having each disc exactly replicate the running order, I
Yeah.
think gives it a little bit of a continuity that other sets don't have. The synchronicity set from the Police just came out, and what you're going to get is a demo followed by a rough studio mix, followed by an instrumental version of the same track, back to back to back. Crazy. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
It's too
So
much.
it's
Too
too
hard to
much,
follow.
too hard to follow. And as a listener, as a listening, if you get this set, if you which we've experienced with the other sets from Lennon, you're going to be able to pull disc 3 out, pop it in, and you're going to get the track. You're going to know what's
Yeah.
coming
The
next.
album.
You're going to
Yeah.
get the album. So I like that.
Yeah. Me
I like
too.
it a lot.
So it,
The I I know that you had some problems with the just talking now about the first disc, the
okay.
which is the ultimate remix. You know, if you to me, I listened to the 2010 at least remaster, and I listened to the ultimate mix, and I'm like, well, I gotta go with the ultimate.
Hmm.
Such a sonic improvement to me, but how you feel a little differently
I
because it
think
does
it's,
take some
yeah,
elements out.
I think that's the thing. It's mixed for me. I think it putting John's voice always up front is not always the greatest thing for me. His voice is great, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but there's times where you want to hear it in the context and not only hear the voice. So, like for example, you already mentioned the falsetto on One Day at a Time is like a little too much, maybe a little too
Mm-hmm.
brought up. And in the original, it sounded a little more in context and not as jarring. So
Yeah,
that
I could see that. Yeah,
things like that are just
yeah.
decisions that Sean made, and
Hmm.
it's perfectly fine.
And hating the saxophone,
And
although
hey,
the saxophone is on some of these
yeah, the other
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 versions. So
versions. That's right. That's
yeah,
right. So I think it's like all of the ultimate mixes. I think we've nitpicked. No one's. We liked the Blue Album tracks, but then we didn't like Old Brown Shoe because there was a lick missing, or I Am the
yeah,
Walrus was controversial, or there's so it
yeah,
gets you talking. So there's no perfect. This is just one person's interpretation of the album. So you have all the other versions there if you want to hear them.
yeah.
But what's interesting on this album is as we go to these other discs here, you have these 5 other versions of things. And
Hmm.
I was confused at first. So you have elemental and elements.
Yeah.
And so
So
yeah, let's
so
move.
elemental is a new thing. They didn't have
Yes.
elemental on the previous two.
Right.
What elemental appears to be is let's take the final version and then let's pot some stuff down till we've got John's voice and maybe a guitar, or John's voice and maybe just a piano, or so
Yeah.
it's stripping it down underdubbing it,
For lack of a better
but
term.
for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. I like it. I like it
Yeah.
as an alternate version of this album. I kind of hope they continue to do it, and I hope that other people take up this idea because it's made for some really interesting versions of this. A couple of the highlights I thought of the set. I know again
Yeah.
with mostly just vocals and guitar, and you can really hear all those vocal harmonies with himself that we were talking about, those overdubs, and you can hear the guitar licks better too,
Yeah.
and it makes for a very pleasant experience with no drums on that.
Right.
And then You Are Here is just vocal, so it sounds like I said, a little more sparse and calming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is. I like these too, and this brings up the issue that I was tangentially alluding to with this album that I find I said it was weak and had a weak sound, and I normally like Jim Keltner's drumming, but I think on this album he's very weak, and
mm,
it doesn't. I don't know what it is. The snare drum sounds weak, and it's just kind of flabby, flaccid, and so
yeah,
I think the songs here. This was one of my favorite discs of the
yeah,
set because I liked not hearing the drums because I think they were distracting me. So I liked what they chose to highlight in the elemental mixes. And like you said, I also liked I Know. I also liked Bring on the Lucy was a good, it didn't have all the everything on it, so you could really
yeah,
hear. And
yeah,
Out the Blue was nice too. So I that was a thumbs up, the elemental mixes.
yeah. Now the elements mix. This has been on the other sets.
Yeah.
It's also appeared like elements type of mixes have appeared elsewhere on other artist sets where they're just taking one element, one thing in the song, and that's pretty much it, or two things like the bass and the drums, and that's it.
Yeah.
Usually, that's a recipe for I'm going to play
Oh,
this once and I'm never going to play it again. But
boring.
but
Yeah.
I had kind of a nice experience with this. I think it speaks to the what you said about it's a very melodic album. The lyrics are the problem on this album more so than the
Yeah.
music and the melodies. So this one you're certainly not going to spin it very often. But when I did, I had a nice experience with it. I put it on while I was working and I was just enjoying the sounds. And there's a lot of they're tight as I'm Sorry and You Are Here are all just the slide guitar or the pedal steel guitar parts.
A lot of
And
Sneaky Pete.
a lot of Sneaky Pete. And I thought, wow, this is great. He did such a
Yeah.
wonderful job on all of them. And they sound really like great. And like I mentioned, the Mind Games with just the organ, it sounds like a church. So Out the Blues, just the piano.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was much more enjoyable than some of the previous ones that I'd listened to. So I thumbs kind of up on
Yeah.
the elements, but you're not going to play it very often for sure.
No, that's the problem. They've released a bunch of these with videos on YouTube in advance of the set being released. And I was thinking, what in the heck is this? Why we're just watching this sort of like the amoeba like
Yeah.
or line drawings and things, but it all kind of makes
Well,
sense. It's meditative.
Dave, I'm not sure if pot's legal in your state
Yeah,
yet.
it is legal in Missouri.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe that'll help.
It would work. Yeah, probably would.
Now, Evolution Documentary is the fourth disc, and these are definitely something that it's sort of like when you buy a DVD or a Blu-ray and it's got the commentary.
Right.
Maybe you'll get around to listen to the commentary. Maybe you never ever listen to it. But I did enjoy the Evolution. I mean, because I wanted to listen to them all for
Oh yeah.
this, and I think these will be very valuable for us if we do a tight as
Song under the
song under the
microscope.
microscope because you get to hear all the sometimes I just really don't like a demo disc
Yeah.
and it depends on the artist, but sometimes a demo disc is a real boring, like grainy, boring
Yeah,
version of it. Well, here you get the little bit of the demo, and then you get some of them working on it, and then you get us close to the final version, but not all the way to the final version.
right.
Particularly this one, the one to listen to for sure is Free to People,
Yes, yes.
because he does talk about histrionics. He goes crazy with a bebop, boop, bop, boop, boop, doop, boop, and then he starts to do a Dylan impression.
Yeah, yeah, he
So
does.
it's pretty fun. So
I agree. I think the evolution documentaries they're not good for repeated listening,
yeah,
but they're informative. And I actually liked a lot of the early demos. I thought some of them were pretty interesting.
yeah,
And but not like you say, not in a whole disc of just listening to John and his acoustic guitar with bad
yeah,
sound. There are
yeah,
just enough that you get the idea, and then it melds seamlessly into the next one,
yeah,
and it takes you up to the end. So I enjoyed these. I haven't listened to the ones on the other two boxes since I got them,
yeah.
uh,
Same
but
here.
I think they're, like you say, they're good for research purposes. For
Yeah,
uh,
archivist
yeah,
value is
archivists for
high.
sure. Yeah, 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 definitely.
So
Now the next thing you've got disc five is the raw studio mixes, and I this one I found the least interesting, probably least interesting listening.
yeah,
I don't know why. Some of them were very close to the originals, or it just didn't. I don't know.
this is the probably the biggest problem with the set is
Yeah,
you get if you have to listen to it not like we just did, where
no,
you're listening to it over and over and over and over again because
yeah,
we're
so
sick
sick
of
of it.
some of the songs. We're saying, I
Yeah,
don't want to hear Intuition again for years, you know? So hearing the raw studio version of Intuition
oh,
that's almost like the
yeah,
it's too much. But uh, uh one day at a time feels different, and you can actually hear that sax
yes. This
on
Michael
that.
Becker is on there.
And then You Are Here is a slightly different feel, and the organ's a little more featured. Feels less tropo
Yeah,
than the original.
yeah.
So at least there's some difference to that.
There
Uh,
are.
but but I highly prefer the outtakes to the raw studio personally.
Well, you already hit the highlight here is the Declaration of Newtopia outtake take one,
Yeah,
which is the best on here, of course, for the
yeah.
outtakes.
Well, at least it's something.
It's something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so the outtakes they chose. Now I assume there weren't tons of them because they recorded this album so quickly, and
yeah.
there weren't a lot of things, but they chose pretty good ones, I thought. And yeah, so go ahead. You were gonna.
Well, you mentioned already the One Day at a Time with the normal register vocals.
Yes, right.
That's the most essential thing here. 100%. Just
Yeah.
really great. And then another really, really, really interesting one. I know we said that how much we like the guitar intro to Out the Blue, but what about an Out the Blue that starts with loud cymbal crashes
Oh, yeah.
and then starts with in the at a different spot in the
Yep.
every
Every
day.
day.
Thank the
Yeah.
Lord that they do. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then Meat City if you like cussing, actual cussing. If you want that explicit on there,
Yep.
you're gonna get that's your Meat City.
I'm looking at my Spotify track listing, and Meat City Outtakes Take 16 has an E next to it. So, yeah, it is explicit for anyone with kids. Keep the
Yeah,
kids out of the room for that one. So,
yeah,
I guess, there's a lot of stuff here. And I think, like you said, we're tired of listening to these songs. So
yeah,
maybe, I wanted to pull out my Imagine deluxe set, and maybe not for a little while. I'm a little worn out on John at the moment, but I want to pull that out again and kind of compare it to the set because I think they do such a good job. But
yeah.
but the question that keeps coming back, and maybe this is a good kind of wrap it up on this, but is does this album warrant this kind of treatment of and let me get preface this because it's one critic I saw who was very negative. You know, you have like Rolling Stone gives it 5 stars. It's amazing. It's essential. It's this album is an underrepresented gem. It's amazing. But then other people are saying this has always been kind of a mediocre, middle of the road album. Are we trying to make it into a masterpiece? Is Sean thinking this is a masterpiece? And so we're
Yeah.
going to put this kind of attention, lavish, more than Plastic Ono Band, more than Imagine. So I don't know, just food for thought.
Well, I think okay, first thing is Paul's done that with all of his records.
Yeah.
That he came out with these big archive things, collections. So there's nothing wrong with coming out with a big archive collection. Does the album quite hit the level of that? Maybe not, but if it never came out, people would be clamoring for it.
Yeah.
So it comes out, and you can decide if you want to buy it or not. So to me, I'm like, release everything, release the tapes, release everything. Let's
Yeah.
hear it all. I'm in team that. Two, yes, they've done some very elaborate things with it. I think the $1,300 version is so stupid and silly, personally, and not worth it. And anybody who's purchased that, I've been throwing away a lot of money. That's how I feel about it. Compare, if it was that, but it was for Imagine or for Plastic Ono Band, or
Well, All Things Must Pass, the
All Things Must
$1,000.
Pass had that, and I thought that was less ridiculous. Although $300 cheaper than this thing, right?
Yeah.
This massive set. My biggest frustration I think the price of the CD set is a little pricey. It's got the CDs and it's got the Blu-rays. Okay. And as we know, it's got all these other tunes in the session. Not a lot, but there's I'm the Greatest and
Rock and Roll People.
Yeah. And then there's him playing a bunch of covers, a track of that. And then there's something with the Mellotron.
Right. Mellotron Magic or something.
Well, guess what? I haven't heard any of those because they're not streaming.
They just actually newsflash. They just came out on Friday. You can stream. At least I saw I'm the Greatest and Rock and Roll People.
Okay.
And then maybe the You Are Here that was on the Record Store Day EP. I think that also came out. So I did see it. I listened to them on Friday. So
okay. Well, that's what I've been missing. I've been missing that because I didn't see that came out. Maybe
just came out.
I really wanted those. That's the I like how the running order goes through the same running order on all 6 discs, but I'm kind of missing the. I know in the set you put in the disc and you do a funky thing or you click on this thing on the Blu-ray and it gives you a video or something like that. Some of that's a lot of fun, but is it very practical that we're going to do that? I mean, when you first buy the set, maybe you'll get and the tracks are listed, but only under blacklight and things like that.
Right.
So, and I think that some of that is like, well, that's a fun idea. Let's put some special packaging. Let's put some things that look different in glow in the dark and things like that. But practicality wise, particularly for the life of the set, what are you going to be pulling that off the shelf and shining black lights on it all day and all night long, and frustratingly not being able to get the track on your One thing I think is only available if you put a Blu-ray in and somehow download it to your computer or something like that. I read something like that. So I'm like, they're playing mind games with the consumer buying the mind game set in the idea, oh, this will be fun. This goes with the theme of mind games. This will be fun. But to me, I'm sort of like, I don't want to do all that. I want to put a thing
Listen
in
to
and
it.
just hear all the songs.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing, Dave, is I've been waiting. And I think I might have to wait a while. And then I think the price on these things are going to go down, just like it did with the Let It Be set. One would
Yeah.
think that the Let It Be set more people would want
Yeah, that's true
uh,
than this.
than this. And I'm waiting for that price to go drop. And when it drops, particularly on the records, if it drops on the two, and the records only have the 2 disc, which I
Yeah.
complained about in an earlier episode, but now that I've heard it all, I'm like, eh. The
That's
two
okay,
discs
really.
are fine with me. But I'm waiting for the prices to drop on this. And I think if the price drops to a friendly under $100, then I might buy this set just to get it on that shelf next
Mm.
to, and because I do want to at least try to
Yeah.
shine it under black lights. I
You
just
want
said I
it.
don't want to do any of that, but
Yeah.
I do. Oh, that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, interestingly, as a point of comparison, the Bob Dylan and the band 1974 live recordings are coming out. That's 27 CDs.
Yeah.
You know how much that costs? That's what the price is for that?
130, something like
Perfect.
that.
129.99.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that versus, and that's 27 CDs
Yeah.
of all these concerts compared to the, you know, yeah, to the
Yeah.
170 or whatever it is for the Mind Games set.
Yeah. Even if it's no frills without a big book and stuff like
Yeah.
that, I kind of would rather have maximum
Yeah.
purchase power
Exactly.
than this. But you don't have to buy any of
No,
it to
fortunately,
get
we don't have
most
to.
of the tracks,
Yeah.
and we didn't. We didn't,
No.
And we're
No, we
big
didn't.
fans. We're big. We're doing we've been talking for 2 hours about the Beatles
Yeah.
on a Beatles podcast, and we didn't purchase this.
No.
Other
No.
YouTubers, they're getting it sent to them because they're wanting to try to sell the set.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problem with all these videos coming out and all this different, them trying to sell the product, and Sean being like, is my father's work, and I want to put out a big set to commemorate my father's work and to make it a big thing, and I think this will improve it in people's eyes,
Mm.
etc. Why? No problem to me.
Hmm.
So I guess my very long-winded answer is like, yeah, we should have this set, and we should have
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I think we
But
should have it. Yeah.
but if this had been a lesser set that was 4 discs and $95, and you know,
Probably fine.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
probably fine. And the other thing about it is all these sets now is sometimes they don't come with the Blu-ray. And I know a lot of people like the Blu-ray, and they have the system set up where they can hear the Dolby Atmos mixes, and they
Oh,
can hear
yeah.
and so including that in the set is kind of cool, because it's not always done these days, or it's done separately. Like they'll just release just a Blu-ray
Right.
separately. So yeah. So anyway,
Well, to wrap things up here, we'll go to our Please Mr. Postman segment and we've got 3 listener comments about this album. So get your take on it here. So we have Tim says, so this particular album was never one of my favorites, but I'm glad it has been given the love and respect that it does. It's a John Lennon album, and I believe it merits that. I
yeah.
do think it is absolutely the best it's ever sounded. I also want to say, and this is probably not a very popular opinion, this is interesting, but I actually do enjoy the elemental mixes. I know it's
Mhm.
not what John envisioned, but it really doesn't bother me,
Yeah.
especially since we have access to the official release that John did approve. I'm tempted to get the vinyl. I think I'm going to go with the 6 CD option. So,
Yeah.
and then someone said, Gary responded and said, the elemental mixes drove me crazy. Haha. Seriously, I love remixes, but just not sold on demixes as a legitimate release.
Yeah. Interesting takes. I
Yeah.
mean, we said I kind of like the elemental mixes.
Yeah.
I don't mind any kind of
No, different.
additional disc of cool stuff.
Yeah. Then we have from Kai. they really improved the low end on the ultimate mixes. To
Oh
me,
yeah.
the album always sounded thin and frail, but now it's
Yes.
much improved, as I've said. Also, the title song sounds way better without those obnoxious strings in the elemental mix.
Yep.
Ah.
Yep. I totally, yeah, the warmth. I mean, just all you've got to do is start playing Mind Games, the 2010, and then click pause and then click on
Yeah, the
the
current.
current version, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
different.
the warmth of the sound of it all.
Hmm. And finally, from Chris, I always liked it. The new mixes and other bells and whistles neither worsened nor increased my enjoyment of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
So,
said in some parts that, you know, I think I'll prefer the original
yeah,
on
I think I'm
so
similar to that probably.
yeah.
So,
So yeah.
whew,
So oh boy.
yeah,
Mind
well, we
games.
did it.
I'll tell you this, Dave. I'm not gonna listen to mind games today.
No, I'm
I
so
just bought
glad
a
that.
bunch of records. I just bought a bunch of records like literally last night. My like Hillary bought me some records for my birthday. I'm like, oh great, these records. Damn it. I've got,
Mind games
I
again.
gotta
Got to
listen
put on
to
intuition again.
games. So
Got to get
yeah,
that
it really
elemental mix.
sucks the life out of even if it's my favorite album, I'll
Yeah.
be
Oh, yeah.
so tired of it by this point.
Oh, definitely. But
So,
I'm
but
glad we hope that
yeah,
we gave everybody the kind of in-depth musical
yeah,
and well-informed opinions that
yeah.
we hope you count on for I've Got a Beatles podcast.
Now, one last thing, Dave. What do you think's next from the Lennon camp?
Well, I think it's obvious that they skipped sometime in New York City
Yeah,
for reasons we've discussed. So I'm guessing Walls and Bridges will
yeah,
probably be next.
yeah. I'm
Or the other alternative would be the live in New York City set, which we'd heard about. It's
yeah,
supposed to be coming at some point. Yeah, that live concert. So we'll see.
yeah. I think maybe that's going to be next live in New York City. I think we'll definitely get this level of set for Walls and Bridges.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get this level of set. There might be a different kind of thing for probably it's going to end up being all of the
Oh,
80s works,
yeah.
including Men Love Avenue and all these like loose end
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
because it was sort of like three records really. It was why is the name escaping me
The
of this?
Double Fantasy
Double
or
Fantasy,
and then Milk and
Milk
Honey.
and Honey, and
Yeah.
then Men Love Avenue. So I wonder if there's going to be some
Mm.
sort of conglomeration
Hmm.
package for that because one would think that there's, I don't know if we'll get
Yeah.
elements mixes of, I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Of
see. But I think there'll definitely be some sort of big set like that. Now they did do the strip down
That's
already,
true. They already did Double Fantasy
yeah.
in some way.
But
Yeah.
I think they like this idea. They'll do those sets. The
Yeah.
questions are sometime in New York City
Yeah.
and rock and roll because
Right. Right.
is there rights issues with rock and roll?
Yeah. The
How does the John
covers.
Camp how does the John Camp feel about it? That kind of thing.
And
So I
Phil
don't know.
Spector. Yeah.
And Phil Spector and all the ugliness with all of that. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
I would hope so. And maybe we get an opportunity to hear some more stuff that's in the
Yeah, that's
vaults.
true.
I don't know.
Well, you
But
and I are both fans of Walls and Bridges, so I think I would be
yeah.
certainly interested to hear that one more than maybe rock and roll or any of that stuff. I'd rather
Yeah.
hear Walls and Bridges stuff.
Yeah, we'll
So,
probably get Walls and Bridges sometime in the next 4 years,
couple of years, yeah,
somewhere
I
like
think
that.
so.
So,
Yeah. All
well,
right. Well,
great, Dave.
yes, we did it. We can. I'm going to take Mind Games out of my downloads on Spotify and not listen to it for a while.
Yep, me too.
But
Me too.
yeah, but yeah, thanks as always for listening, and we will be back at you soon with another episode.